everybody, two Alpha Gals here. I'm Debbie Nichols.
And I'm Candace Mathis, and you're listening to In the Tall Grass, where we're sharing stories of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering joy.
Whether it's facing Alpha Gal syndrome or any other redefining chapter of life, we all have to learn how to navigate the journey through the tall grass. So here we go.
Okay, so we are so excited to talk with Dani Tyger today. She is a beauty industry executive from Beverly Hills, California. And after listening to an interview with Dani on one of our favorite podcasts, Tick Boot Camp, we knew we had to meet her, especially after she referenced one of our videos. So we connected and have been so inspired by her courageous journey with Lyme. So we're going to dive right in and welcome Dani.
Hi, ladies. Thank you so much, Candace, for the sweetest intro. It's been quite a journey discussing the Lyme stuff. So I love the positive vibes, and I'm so excited to talk to you gals about everything, not just health stuff, but maybe some hair and beauty stuff too, some girl talk.
We're looking forward to that too. And our goal is to kind of try to keep this as positive and uplifting as we can. But we know that you are on a health journey and we want to hear about how you're managing that now. But could you give us and our listeners some context where it started and how you got to here? Like, for example, do you remember being bitten by a tick?
Yeah, so it's really crazy because I started getting really ill a few years ago. And when I actually look at the whole spectrum, I realize I probably haven't been healthy and well for quite some time. But in maybe 2019 was when things really started to go downhill for me. And so through, I would say, the grace of God and amazing clients, one of my clients referred me to a medical center that they kind of help out with like mystery diagnosis, basically when you cannot figure out what is wrong with you and you are really, really struggling and to the point where you're kind of desperate for answers. They really, really dig deep and can help you find out what's going on. And so for me, that's where I first found out about my thyroid issue. But about a year into it, I got a phone call from my doctor, Dr. Moses Laffer, and he told me, sort of to brace myself and that it's official. I have late stage chronic Lyme disease, and that's what we really need to be focusing on. And when he said those words, I was like, okay, so what do we do? Like, I literally had no idea even contextually, like, what does that mean? I just thought, okay, is there a pill or a shot or what do we do? And so it really took a long time to understand it. So now hindsight's 2020, having that view of like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. I can go back and research and kind of look at my lifeline and see where it all went wrong. So I did get bit by a tick when I was little. My grandparents, they had dogs and they had two boxers. And so I remember like being in their backyard and the dogs would have ticks. And I do remember, I think I had like a tick in my ear. And so my mom found it or something and we just took it out. And I mean, we just knew nothing about ticks or anything. We literally thought it was like a pet thing, like your dogs had it. And that was that. Right. And so for my personal situation, I didn't have an initial infection. So we really thought nothing of it. I mean, it's just a little tick, you take it off and that's that. And that was when I was around age 7. So not till I was in my, very later 20s did I realize that there was some connection probably with, the Lyme bacteria basically and tick-borne infections, the co-infections that go with it, with that being in my system for so long. And then when my thyroid, flared up, that's when the Lyme flared up as well. So that's kind of the sum of my Lyme and chronic health journey, which of course it's so much deeper than that because everyone has their own individual situation, but that's kind of where mine stems from. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is dealing with it for the past couple of years.
Sure. So did you have any symptoms between the time that you were bitten and that time that it sort of flared when your thyroid flared?
Well, something that I've learned dealing with dealing with all of it, right. This chronic illness and just really having a super introspective look on my health in general is that, everything is kind of like a connected system. It's sort of like a puzzle, if you will. So, I guess if you're saying like, did I have, particular Lyme symptoms, like when I got bit until now, it's kind of a gray area because I dealt with a lot of anxiety and OCD because I had a lot of really serious trauma when I was really young. And so, just the stress and things like that. I mean, it all started really young. And so I had quote unquote symptoms, if you will. But I didn't initially relate them to my tick-borne illnesses. Not until much later when it was, you had more severe symptoms like air hunger and, the chronic fatigue and all these like really debilitating issues. And I've also had a lot of digestive issues for a really long time. So it's a very tangled web of that's been the past year of my life, is really trying to like unravel the knots of yarn and see like which came first, the chicken or the egg, the stomach issues, or the chronic illness. So like, it's just all jumbled together. And so, actually it's been incredible blessing to have these types of interviews like with you guys, because I can really, take that time to really look at my story and ask myself those questions and really like dig into my own history of like, how did that happen? Or when did that happen? And then connecting with incredible communities like what you gals have. And then, just the other Lyme community, chronic illness community, invisible illness community. There's like so many support systems out there. When you start to talk about your story, sometimes other people's perspectives help you to understand a little bit more. And so I've had people that can share insight into my own story, which has been amazing. And so that's shed a lot of light on, where things started or how things unraveled. Quick example. Yeah. So I had a really significant trauma when I was very young, like 4 years old. And so since then I had to be on antibiotics, and I would get, chronic infections, pretty much every single month of my childhood, young adulthood, forever. And so because I was chronically on antibiotics, they never had an opportunity to really like flare up and be more destructive.
Sure. Until
I got older and I started living a more holistic lifestyle, and I got off of, say birth control and, stopped taking antibiotics and things like that. Now I'm very, very sick. So it's kind of, that's what I mean in terms of like looking at the perspective on things and how things kind of, evolved or devolved depending on what was going on in my life or how I was taking care of myself or not taking care of myself. So
Sure. And I think it's easy too to sometimes compartmentalize like these different symptoms. Like, when I was first diagnosed with alpha-gal, and I think Candace was the same, we look at what's happening right in that moment. But then as I started to evaluate, as we did interviews and talked to other people going through, and I started thinking, my massive anxiety could be linked, and all my GI issues could be linked, and things that I had put in these compartments were now sort of all representing alpha-gal for me, or one big sickness rather than these little compartments.
Yeah. And that's definitely the approach that I've taken from the beginning. And not any credit to myself. I think my big sister is like, one of my biggest heroes, and she, really advocates for her own health. She struggled with some weight issues and like some pre-diabetes and things like that. And so she's the one who really taught me about what we're putting into our bodies has the biggest impact on our health. And she helped me to fall in love with running. And, it was very exciting. I think when it comes from someone that you love so much and that inspires you, you do feel more inspired to like, take care of yourself or kind of get yourself to that level. So anyway, she's the one that taught me about, a healthier lifestyle, which was a blessing because that happened right before I started getting really sick. And so I was able to live out a really healthy lifestyle and kind of have the opportunity to see what a healthy lifestyle looked like before I fell so ill as I am now. And so during this whole entire thing, I've had that really holistic approach. And so it's not like, oh, you have thyroid disease. Oh, you have Lyme disease. Okay, well, you need to take this medication and this is what it looks like. I try to take that approach of like, okay, well, my whole system, what's going on? Am I, meditating and prayer and sleeping and sunlight and, all these different things, because I understand how connected everything is. And even just your state of mind, how it affects your physical health and so on and so forth. It's a whole body connection. So even when I'm having, maybe a podcast that's specifically about Lyme, I'm like, well, let's talk about whole body inflammation. There's like so much more going on there, which I'm sure you ladies totally understand.
Yes. And I love like just how you came through that in that introspective way. I can relate to that. And I know Debbie can too. And I feel like that a lot of people probably go through that in this journey of seeing kind of where they were before and maybe having the steps of like introspection that they had in years past. And then it allows for like this real unraveling of figuring out, well, gosh, this connects with this. And I think it moves us maybe into our healing a little bit better. And I love that you brought that up, because I know that we can go like even more into that and, in just a little bit, but I would love to know, I know you said now that you're not feeling well. So can you share with us a little bit more, like how you are feeling in this present moment, and maybe what are you doing like in the day-to-day to manage being in this season of the journey?
Absolutely. So like I was saying, when my doctor first informed me, okay, you have something called late stage chronic Lyme disease, which is a mouthful, but I was like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, what's the answer? And so it's really understanding that it's a process. My body was in total system failure. And so it didn't get that way overnight, and it's definitely not going to get better overnight. And that's something that really took me a long time to just comprehend that was even what was going on, because of, my personality. I'm a problem solver, and I'm very A-type personality. So if there's something going on, I look at it objectively. I'm like, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's break this down. Let's tackle it this way. Like, let's go and get to the resolution really, really as efficiently as we can and as fast as we can. And that is just not possible when you have something like a chronic illness. It really is just understanding that you have to have this graciousness with yourself, and you have to learn how to accept it. And if I'm being totally transparent and really honest, it's really like learning how to endure the suffering, and not just like feeling sorry for myself or just going into that black hole, because it's so easy to do that. It's like, I just have to have a completely different perspective. And I there's so many pieces to that. So I don't have like one specific answer, but that's kind of what has gone on with me. So when I say I'm not doing well now, in some instances, I'm so much better. I can recall going into Dr. Lawfer's office at Wolff Medical and just bawling my eyes out because I was so sick. And obviously hindsight, I know that a lot of that was adrenal, malfunctions. And right. So the stress and the hormonal overload and I was so overwhelmed. My hormones were just going crazy and my body was just not functioning properly. And so for my brain to understand that at the time, I couldn't. I just thought it was all my fault and I didn't know what I was doing wrong. So I just remember crying and thinking I remember having days where I just would pray to God and I would just say, you know what, God, I think your will be done. But if this is what my life is going to be, can you please just take me home? I really don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Please, is there a way? And I wasn't suicidal, but I just felt like if I have to wake up every day and endure this in this way, then what is the point of me being here? Because I became such a burden on myself and on the people that I loved, and I just couldn't be the same person that I was. And so to know that that's the place that I was at, and to see where I am now, that it's okay, that was such a moment of despair. But a place like Wolff Medical or other, support that I have in family and friends or whatever have helped me to, like I said, unravel that ball. And you just start to digest it piece by piece, and you start to make little victories here and there. Like taking supplements, I really didn't do that before. And I'm like, wow, this helps so much. And so even the littlest of things, seeing some improvements, it's wow, I'm so much better than I was maybe 2 years ago. Yeah. I remember me and my fiance were driving down the street, and I saw a couple just walking and having coffee. And I just looked at them and I'm like, I can't do that right now because my anxieties were so bad. My stomach was so bad. I would just flare into these panic attacks and I would get so disoriented. And I had this massive disassociation where I just felt like a complete alien. I didn't feel like a human. I couldn't relate to people anymore because I was so sick. And so the other day we're getting coffee and we're walking down the street and I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. But I also have a power wheelchair because there are times where my chronic pain is so intense and my legs just pretty much shut down and I can't use them at all. I can't like lift myself. I can't use my ankles. I can't use my knees. Like they just refuse to work. I'm not paralyzed. I know I can do it, but my brain is like telling my body the pain is so intense and the inflammation is so bad. It's like this weakness that overcomes my body and I can't use my arms or I can't use my legs. So it's really managing what's going on in my body. And now that I have a clearer picture, I'm like, okay, I can understand that I only have so much energy. I need to conserve it. So even though I had a really hard time accepting, okay, wow, you're really in a wheelchair now. Like that's how bad it's gotten. I have to remind myself, like, don't look at it that way. You just have to look at it as you're being really smart. You understand your body and this is where you're at right now. And if you can conserve your energy in these certain areas, like, you know, if I'm going to take the kids to the park, I'm not going to walk all the way there. And then I come home and I can't do laundry and I can't cook dinner because my arms and legs aren't working. Like just take the wheelchair, you know, and then go have fun and you can be with the kids and then come home and you still have more energy to do stuff. So I hope that answers your question. I know it's a lot because it's hard to like bottle it down into one little answer.
No,
but
it's
in
so
some
good.
ways, yeah, in some ways I'm much better. In some ways, if you were to look at me, you might think I'm worse, but knowing where I came from, I've come a long way. And I think that managing day to day and getting through each day, it's really just having a better understanding of what my body needs at a particular time. If I need to rest, I have to rest. If I have the energy, awesome, use it.
Right. And I think you brought up some really beautiful points of, you know, giving yourself grace. And I think in those moments, like you were saying, in the darkness of it and the really, really hard, challenging times, I mean, I can empathize so much. I could feel my own walk when you were talking. It's like, I remember being on the couch and I remember these moments of just not being the mom I wanted to be or the person that I was the day before. You know, it was just, mine was such a flip overnight. And I do think that somehow the switch does switch back a little bit to where you start to gain the small victories. And I think it's beautiful that you embrace that, right? And you embraced the moments that were positive to help lift you out of it. And that's something Debbie and I talk a lot about with Two Alpha Gals is, you know, helping people navigate this to become more resilient through reinvention. And I think you also touched on some other really important topics of how important support is and, you know, like how that really affects your mental health. And we would love, you know, we're such huge mental health components. And I know you are such a strong, faithful person. So are there other things like in particular that you're doing to maybe nurture more of your mental health? Because I think that that's a really important aspect for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I have to give like 100% of the glory to God. And I know that, you know, some people really struggle with like religion and spirituality and kind of how that all fits. Right. But for me personally, like I've always had an amazing relationship with Jesus since I was a very young girl. And through any like trials or, you know, things that have come along in my life, I would say it's kind of like a gift of faith because on my own, I probably would just go crazy, but there's just something inside of me that always turns back to that versus running away. And so that's really, that's everything who I am. That is everything that makes me is my faith in God and my relationship with God. It's a very intimate relationship, and all of my joy, all of my strength, all of my stamina, all of my endurance, everything comes from the super intimate relationship that I have with God. And, you know, I wish I could have some kind of other answer that's like, oh, I don't know, face masks or whatever. Yeah. But like, I mean, of course that's helpful. It's fun. But with something like this, that's why I said, I'm going to be transparent. You know what I mean? Like it's heavy. It's really, really heavy. And it's something, you know, they call it an invisible illness because it's like when you look at someone like myself, for example, even being a beauty industry, you know, artist, I can hide really well behind my hair and makeup masks. But what's going on inside of my body, in my heart, and in my mind, it's really intense. And it's really, really, that's why we're called warriors. You know what I mean? Like to try and get through every day just to do the normal things is really intense. And so for me, to have that mental stamina, I need something extremely powerful and, sort of supernatural. And that's really just what gets me through. And I'm super lucky because, I would say it's God's timing. The way that things went down for me when I was at my worst was in 2020. I mean, it was at, the tail end of 2019. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is getting like unbearable, because I was on stages everywhere. I was traveling all over. I was in airplanes constantly, hotels, Ubers, teaching in executive meetings. I mean, I was all over the place, and it was becoming really unbearable because I was really sick and I had no idea what was wrong with me. And so I'm just thinking, I don't know how much longer I can hide this, because that's what I was doing at the time. Mm-hmm. And then the world shut down and I was like, awesome. Because I'm like, now I don't have to make an excuse for why I can't get to work today, because I don't have to go to work today because the salon is shut down. So, I mean, I know that was it's not a joking matter. That was a super hard time for everybody. But for me personally, it was a graceful moment for me because I had some time to rest without feeling bad about it and feeling ashamed about it. And at that time, the church that I've gone to for a long time, they began to offer it's called School of Ministry. They offered it online. And that was something that I always wanted to do. And so I enrolled in the college and I started taking classes and just learning more about, my faith and what it means and how to answer certain questions. I mean, the world is a crazy time and people had a lot of questions and they're like, why do you believe in God? Like, the world sucks. And I'm like, let me think about how I want to answer this question. So I decided to go to school so I could educate myself and be equipped, not only to answer questions, but to help other people. Because if I'm struggling, I know there's plenty of people out there that are going through the same thing. And so my point is just that, I'll be graduating at the end of this year. It's a 2-year course. And I just learned so much about my own personal spirit and my own personal inner man and who I am and what makes me who I am and what makes me a person, what makes my soul, what my soul's made of, and like my purpose in life. I mean, I know that sounds super deep and kind of like cheesy.
No, not at all. Like, I love it. And I love your like vulnerability in your heart. So I just think it's so beautiful. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's okay. Thank you so much. It's very encouraging because, I get criticized a little bit for that because people, have a lot of misunderstanding about what that's all about. But for me, it's like people ask me that a lot of times, like how can you be so happy and so full of joy when you're like, so, overweight and unhealthy and sick and, you can't work anymore. Like, don't you want to just like end it? Because I mean, what's the point if, I had this idea of who I was and what I wanted to be. And if I can't even stand behind my salon chair anymore, like what is the point of all of it? Sometimes people feel like that. And for me, I'm like, well, I'm a citizen of heaven, so I don't really mind whatever's going on down here. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, this is my life. It's like, I can have that relationship with God and find, just joy in whatever lies in front of me, whether it's good or bad. And that's not on my own accord. It's like, if I didn't have, time in the Bible or the things that I do that really, I would consider self-care is making that time to build that relationship and nourish that relationship with God. That's what keeps me strong and keeps me going. But I also have amazing friends like you gals and, my fiance and just amazing, incredible people that keep me going. And that's my self-care. Like when we can have movie nights and like watch our Netflix shows, cause it's really rare. I mean, I do still work really hard. I just work from home. And so when I can separate from my phone or separate from the laptop and I'm like, let's just watch, a show or, with my stepdaughter, I'm like, let's watch the makeup show, like whatever. They have like the makeup competitions. It's like, that's my self-care when I just zone out and I like just watch something fun. And so I try to make time for that, like every night.
I think that's great. And, I want to ask you about your career, but I'm just so fascinated by what you've been saying. I think whether it's faith or God or whatever form of self-care you need to get you through, that's important because it does help you reframe what you're going through. It takes you from, suffering to overcoming. And Candace and I talk about that a lot because we do fall back in this rut of not feeling good at times, or the brain fog, like we were talking about before we were recording. You fall back in these moments and you think, how am I going to get out of it? And whether it's prayer or reading the Bible or meditating or tapping or sitting with your chickens, you know, everybody who seems to be successful with this is finding that connection, is finding something to help nurture their mental health, ways to provide self-care for themselves. So I think that is really fantastic that you're doing that. And I also think it's beautiful that you're finding the silver lining in this. And I loved what you said about 2020, right? Because I think about this a lot. I actually sort of missed that year in some ways, because for a minute, I had my teenage daughter home with me, right? She wasn't going to school. I mean, both my teenagers, but my teenage daughter is about to launch from the nest, but she wasn't going to school. She wasn't going to theater practice. She wasn't going to her, you know, club meetings and things. And so I had this beautiful year where, yes, the world was upended around us, but I had this year at home with my kids that I will never regret, even though we were a little bit scared to leave the house. When we did, we had to wear masks, you know. So I just think it's so great that you found the silver lining in that. And it does sound like it's sort of divine the way it happened for you and the way that you had the opportunity to take the class and everything. So I think that's great. But to get back on track, because I could probably go off the rails talking about that. Can you tell us a little bit about your career? Because we know you've been very successful. When did you know that this is what you wanted to do with your life, that you wanted to be a beauty industry executive?
Yay. Well, that's a fun story. I love talking about this. Well, it's funny because, again, when I'm looking at my lifeline, I'm a 4th generation hairdresser. But when I was in college, I never in a million years would have thought I should go into the beauty industry. It's funny though, because I have always been fascinated with like behavioral science and psychology. So that was the field that I started to go into because, you know, I have a big heart and I do like to help people. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's definitely, you know, the field that I want to go into career wise. But when I started going to school, I'm like, it's so clinical. You know, it's very detached. And I'm like, I don't think I'm such an empath. I'm like, I don't think this is going to work for me. And so at that time I was taking so many classes and I was starting to freak out and I'm like, what do I do? And I switched my major to human communications. And it was actually a friend of mine who was a hairdresser. And he's like, what are you doing with your life? Because you go to school all day long and then you work like 3 different jobs and then you like come to the club with us and party and then you go back to school. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to like figure out where I fit in. And so we just had this great conversation and we realized, you know, I love doing hair and makeup. And he's like, well, why don't you like pursue that? And I'm like, that's not a real job. And he's like, really? Because that's what I do with my life. And I was like, oh no, like I don't know why I never thought of it as like a category, but you know, I mean, I'm a little bit older. I'll be 35 this year. So I don't know. At the time, it just, I don't know. It wasn't as big as it was. We didn't even have social media really, except for MySpace. So, yeah. So I was like, okay. And he was a great mentor and he encouraged me to take a makeup class at my college, like a theatrical makeup class. And so that's really where it all started. And, you know, I've been super blessed that, again, I'm always prayerful about my life and kind of the steps that I'm taking. And so God has put a lot of amazing people in my life. And so I've had great mentors. My makeup teacher really took me under her wing and she brought me on set and we did all kinds of amazing things. And I remember one time we had a car accident scene and she's like, okay, now we have to squirt the blood. And she like handed me this bottle of blood and I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, just squirt it everywhere. And I'm like, seriously? Like just... And so here I am with this huge bottle of blood and I'm just like squirting it all over this like car scene. And I'm like, I can't believe people get paid for this. Woo! Like, I just was like, this is the best career ever. Like, how come we don't talk about this more? And so, I think because it's sort of in my blood, you know, my grandmother, she did the big beehive updos. And so it's just kind of in there. And so I really was able to find my fit once I gave it an opportunity. And, so I've been in the freelance hair and makeup industry for about 16 or so years. And along the way, I thought I should probably get my license in case I ever want to, you know, work at a salon or something like that. So I got my license, I went to hair school, got my license, and, it's another amazing web, but as opposed to a unhealthy web of, you know, physical illness, this one is a web of like amazing, fun beauty industry opportunities, because it's not just, oh, I like hair and makeup, I'm going to work at a makeup counter, or I'm going to work at a salon and do highlights, you know, forever. There's so many amazing things you can do in the industry. And I've been incredibly blessed that I've had an opportunity to do pretty much every single thing there is to do in the industry. So I've done, I mean, it's everything. I've done red carpet events. I've done the Emmys. I've worked for Netflix. I've just done so many different things. I don't even know where to, where the list would start or end, but weddings and clients. And I have worked in salons and management, and I've done, executive work for brands. I've been an educator. I've gone on tours, and, we have hair shows that are all over the world. And so I've been able to see kind of all sides of it. And so it's been incredibly amazing. And it's really prepared me for this moment, because I absolutely love working behind the chair and, helping clients to understand, their particular hair type and their concerns and what's possible for their hair, and inspire them to maybe do something exciting with their hair, or to, give them hope for their hair and all of that. But I've also had, that other side where I've managed salons, and I've really honed those other, executive skills to where I can work in the office now. And my main job right now is, managing other artists. So people that are really, influential in the industry and really busy. I just help them with their schedules and communications and all of that stuff. And so it's something that I really, really love. And I never even would have imagined 15 years ago that this is what I would be doing, or the type of people that I would be working with. It's amazing. It's really, really fun.
It sounds amazing, and it sounds fun. And it's interesting, because I actually have to shift the next question I had ready in my head, because you're obviously so passionate about this. You're so passionate about what you're doing, and you love it. And that's clear in our conversation. And I was going to ask you, because when we think about food allergies or alpha-gal syndrome or other chronic illness, we're often talking about sacrifice, right? We're giving something up, and there's a grieving period associated with that. But to me, when you're talking about this, I'm hearing more that it just helped you sort of shift into a different part of the industry that you loved already. And it sounds like you're in another position that you love, that you're learning from.
Yeah. Well, that's another big part of what I've, had the opportunity to do, is work in product development, in product education, and all of that. There was a time where I would travel to all the Sephoras in Southern California, and I would teach hair, because obviously Sephora is, more heavily focused on makeup. But eventually they started to transition into offering hair products and services and things like that. But they didn't really have an understanding of that. So when I would go to teach, I'm always a student. So I'm like, what's that makeup brand, or what's that hair brand, or what do you guys do, and what's it made of, and how does it work? And tell me everything, because I'm a total hair nerd and I want to know everything when it comes to hair and beauty and all that stuff. So I really learned so much from the other, representatives that would be coming in to teach and work, or even just from the guys and gals that would be working there. So I learned a lot about that. And then also, with my partner now, my fiance, he, has developed a lot of his own products, and we have amazing opportunity to collaborate with a lot of other artists and, just business people to be able to come up with new products or to understand their products. We're sponsored by products. So it's like, for some, like you said, I'm very passionate about it. And so for me, when we come onto a new project, or we discover a new product, I want to know everything about it. So I definitely think that there are incredible people behind amazing products and amazing brands that do support people like ourselves that have limitations on what we're able to use on our skin or on our hair, all those things. But in answer to your question, it's like, I kind of do feel that part of having, kind of being in the chronic illness category, if you will, that's part of what it's our responsibility to adapt a little bit as well, because I definitely went through a time where I felt frustrated too. I'm like, I can't eat anything, which I know you gals know everything about. That's the story of your lives. But it's like, we can't eat anything. We can't touch anything. We can't use anything. It's not fair. And it's not fair. But at the same time, God grant me the serenity to accept things I can't change. So this is just, where we're at in our lives, and we do have these limitations. And so I think it's really finding a balance of, feeling encouraged to go out there and really do your research and to find these amazing people that are supportive of our situation, but also to adapt to our current situation. So for me, like I'm a hairdresser and I absolutely love hair and I love my own hair and I've done crazy, awesome, fun, amazing things with my hair. And when I got my thyroid disease, my hair fell out, it got brittle, it broke, it was frizzy, it was super ugly. And I've experienced clients in my chair have gone through the same thing. And we've run the gamut on let's try this product. Let's use this kind of thing. Let's use this tool. Let's use this vegan hair color, all these different things. And nothing would work for her. And then a few years later, I find myself in the same situation and I can be completely empathetic, but I also can understand, you know what, now is just a time where my body is in healing and maybe I can't have those same things that I've always had. Maybe I can't have that same style. I have to kind of compromise with where I'm at right now. And it's not to like lose hope that I'm just going to like have to wear a wig for the rest of my life, because my personal experience, I've gotten better. I've got my thyroid under control. My hair started growing back. I did find amazing products. And like I said, luckily I had the opportunity to have this plethora of product knowledge in my back pocket. And so I already knew of amazing brands, like even in terms of a hair tool that has minerals baked into the curling iron. So when I use it on my hair, I'm actually infusing my hair with minerals. And so it's actually nourishing my hair as opposed to using, something I found at the drugstore that's going to burn my hair like, an iron we iron our clothes with. Like, right. There's all different types of things out there. But if you're able to do your research, and now with social media, there's people like myself that we love to share our nerdiness and we love to talk about products. And there's some people who want to listen, us, this conversation we're having right now. Right. So there's a lot of opportunity out there to find, alternative products that we can use. But I think also part of it is accepting where we're at and kind of, pivoting a little bit and working our way around, okay, maybe this is a time where I just need to lay off the hair color for a little bit, or, prioritize our health a little bit more.
Yeah. I think that is such an important message and something Debbie and I have both had to navigate. I mean, you talk about hair nerds, like my sister was also a hairstylist. She went to the Paul Mitchell Academy in Florida years ago. And so I became a lot more snobby, if you will, about my hair and like what products I used and all of that stuff. And so
Candace, I don't mean to interrupt, but my sister says the exact same thing. When I went to Paul Mitchell, she's like, I'm a hair snob now. Like I can look at other hairs and be like, girl, you need some oil in that hair or whatever. Cause she's knowledgeable now. So I totally get it.
Yeah. And it was so hard because being like with our alpha-gal diagnosis, I became fume reactive. So I couldn't even be around like the chemical aspect due to mast cell. So like you talk about the complexities, I was one of those that didn't just get this one allergy to beef. Mine was like all encompassing plus chemical sensitivities. And I had a massive reaction getting my hair dyed for the first time in, my regular salon. And it forced me to have that conversation with my stylist and say, okay, this is what I need. Can you help me navigate this? Because I know nothing about vegan color. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was terrified. I went from like using Moroccan oil was like my favorite product ever. I don't even know if I could use that anymore. Honestly, I haven't even looked into it because I gave up everything that was fragranced, right? Like, but I was like, I know that a lot of us with any of these chronic conditions, we worry about the products we have to give up. Is it going to shift to something that's just doesn't work, or it's not going to look as nice or any of that? But I love that you kind of brought that to light too. It's like, we have to start the conversation and we have to maybe adapt for a while in a different manner. So do you have any other advice, maybe from a stylist perspective, of how we can step into the salon to make it enjoyable again? I mean, is there anything else maybe to add to that, or any other tips maybe you have from your experience or your clients' experiences?
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, you're giving me some great ideas for Instagram reels right now. I'm like, I'm going to have to start making a series. But yeah, I think, just like when you are, if you want to say quote unquote diagnosed with, any kind of chronic illness, like what alpha-gal, what I have, anything that somebody may have to deal with, it's heartbreaking in the beginning. But I think if you can learn to try to have the courage to begin to accept sort of a new life and a new chapter that you're into, you can see a totally different perspective to where you can actually be grateful for it. I know that sounds crazy, but like for myself, I'm like, you know what? I can actually start to embrace this new person and like enjoy it, because it's really forcing me to, I would say, be more creative. I have to like look at things in a different way. And so like in the beginning, it's like I'm heartbroken and I'm angry and all these things. But then on this other, once you get to the other side of the hill, it's like, wow, I can have so much more appreciation for my life. I don't think I really looked at the small things, and I really thought about how amazing my life is. And then now that I'm here, I can look back and say like, I'm so lucky. Like, look at my fiance is still with me, or my family, or these different things. I can see things in a different way, and I can be so much more grateful for life, and I can squeeze more juice out of it than I did before. And I think it's a kind of a parallel when you're thinking about hair and makeup and the beauty industry and the salon experience, because we can think of that like, oh, wow, I can't wear makeup anymore. I can't get my hair dyed, or all these things that are like bad. But it's like, you know what? Maybe instead of wearing, like for example, Candace, it's like the fumes. Okay. I can't tease my hair and put hairspray and make it look the way that I've always made it look, that I love it. But it's like, you know what? Maybe now I can learn how to do braids, and I can wear my hair in like a braided pony mohawk or something that I would have never tried before. But I can totally, like you said, it's that, reinventing yourself. And it's like, I don't need to be defined in a negative light because I struggle with health issues. Like, actually look at how much more creative I am now. And I can like change, the way that I've been living my life for so long that kind of got me to this situation in the first place. Right. So I think it does open a door to be a little bit more creative with your own personal style, which is exciting. And that's something you can embrace. And it's something you can look forward to, as opposed to like, oh, I can't have this anymore. I can't do this anymore. It's like, no, actually now I can rock these braids, or I can rock a wig. Like, do you know that? Like, hello, I have black hair. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to wear like colors anymore. I mean, when I was really young, I used to wear fun, punky colors, but now that I'm, an adult, I'm all like, oh, I don't think I can rock that stuff anymore. And also I don't want to bleach out my hair. I could never be blonde. Well, when all my hair fell out, I was like, yay, my hair's way thinner, and I can put a wig over it. It's not going to look crazy. It's going to fit awesome. And I have this wig that's like lavender, like long blonde, and I dyed it lavender. And then I have these like neon yellow little like money pieces in the front, and it looks so cool. And I never thought I would be able to wear something like that. And it was so much fun. I can like have a new identity. And so it's just seeing a little bit of a different perspective. So like I said, I think there's a balance. I think you can feel open with your hairdresser to talk about those things. And then you can also have an opportunity to do just something that you may have never thought of doing before. But going back to your question about stylists, I think when you're unfamiliar with a certain subject or a certain field or a certain area, you feel so uncomfortable to like have these conversations. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember that the person that you're talking to, like, this is what they do, like when you go to the doctor and you're like, I'm having stomach issues and I don't know how to talk about it. It's like, they don't care. They talk about that all day long. Right. They're not weirded out by it. They know more than you. And that's their job, is to help you. Like, that's what they are passionate about doing. So just like a hairdresser, this is what we're passionate about doing. So if you're like, oh, my scalp is flaky and itching, I don't want to talk to my hairdresser. That's weird. It's creepy. They're not going to want to touch my head. Like, trust me, we've seen it all. We've done it all. We've touched it all. And for us to be able to help you is a huge accomplishment for us. And it makes us feel worthy and like we have something to give, and it's something we're passionate about. So bring it on. You know what I mean? Like, don't feel ashamed or uncomfortable to have those conversations with your hairdresser. And maybe, for all we know, your hairdresser could have taken, some vegan hairdressing color class that they absolutely loved, and none of their clients want vegan vegan color. And so now they're like, I never get to talk about this amazing thing. And then you're the person who comes in and says, hey, I can't use regular color. Do you have anything else? And they're like so excited to share this product with you that they love. So it's out there, but it's like, it just needs a little bit more exposure. Like you said, Candace, we need to start having these conversations. So yeah.
And I will say, I have used the vegan hair color that our salon, my stylist, the owner, went digging, and I love it. It's been great on my hair. So I have to say, give it a try.
I actually was on a campaign when there's a company called Biolage, and they launched a vegan hair color brand. It's actually a plant-based color. and it's incredible. And so when they came to LA and we were shooting some footage in Hollywood, and it was really amazing because they have all these different colors. You can use it for toning color. You can use it for gray coverage. I believe it has like a 50 to 75% coverage. So there's some education, that's required behind it. But there was all of us hairdressers and we all had a different, package, and we were all trying different types of things. We were highlighting with it. We were toning, all these different things. Excuse me. And I actually was the one who got picked to do the dark, cocoa brown color that was for root coverage. And, this is my job. And so I'm on set and we're filming and I'm like learning about it and we're doing the shoot and everything. And I have my model and I'm like, this is great. And this is fun. But when I rinsed that color out, I mean, my reaction was so authentic because I was like, this is amazing. Like I could not believe the richness and the creamy. I mean, it was stunning. And I got to be honest that I was like, this probably isn't going to be like the best thing I've ever seen, but at least it's out there. At least it's an option. But when I actually got my hands on it and I used it and it was like, the proof is in the pudding. Like when I actually saw it on my model, I was completely shocked at how well it worked. It was unbelievable. I actually do have the video on my Instagram. I have to tag you girls in it so you can check it out.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's really some of the stuff that's out there is, I mean, we've come a long way. It's like things didn't change for a good 40 years in the hair industry. And I'll be honest, the hair industry, we're a little behind. You know what I mean? I think makeup has progressed a lot faster, but we're starting to get on board. And so we're starting to come out with some really amazing products and some good education and getting the information out there. So it's out there and I'll do my best to send things your way, girls, when I find good stuff.
Awesome. No, I'd love to hear you talk about being creative because I think as a consumer, and I'm thinking specifically about eating, we had asked a chef a few weeks ago, what can we do as consumers to make your job easier when we're there in your restaurant? And his response was so similar to what you just said. You both have said, this is an opportunity to be creative. And I love that because it's just another way to reinvent this life in a positive way. Because I think about too, like, we're constantly taking things that we used to love and we're having to change them. We're having to reinvent them, we're having to be creative in order to get back to finding that joy a little bit. So I love to hear you say that. I also love to hear that there are good quality vegan products out there too, because I was going to ask you about that. Because you do start to worry, like you were saying, you didn't know what to expect and you were blown away by seeing that hair color. And that's just really encouraging to us, when we're sort of being forced to have to use it, that maybe it's not such a bad switch after all.
Yeah. And as a consumer, I think you ladies are amazing, but I think what you're doing in this particular thing right now, having these conversations, having this podcast, getting it out there and encouraging other people to ask for that is important because in my experience, I've seen a lot of brands that have had amazing ideas and they've come up with amazing products, but the demand is not strong enough to sustain it. And that's absolutely heartbreaking because it's like, I'm the middleman. I'm like, no, wait, like there's people, trust me. So I think, hairdressers can only do so much in what we demand for our clients. Mm-hmm. But I think if clients are the ones that are really voicing, their needs and their desires, and they're buying the products and they're booking the appointments and they're consistently using these things, it can grow. And so there's going to be a lot more force to draw that stuff out and to spread it around. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. We're trying to make our voices loud as we can so we can have a big impact.
Yes.
So that things are safe, so that life is safer for us. Just even everyday life. And so I'm wondering, can you give us any tips on how to talk to our stylists about switching products, about, our new needs?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, just being like as open and transparent as possible, because we all know that hairdressers, they call it like hair therapy or therapy, or, there's so many little like hashtags that it's like your hairdresser is your therapist. And so they probably, the second you start, you sit down in their chair and the first thing you're going to do is have a consultation. And so from that moment, if you just let them know like, hey, these are my concerns, this is what's going on, instead of like, hey, here's this picture of Elsa from Frozen on Instagram, can you give me this beautiful thick blonde hair? It's like, no, let's talk about the hair that's on your head. So it's like, just being honest with your hairdresser and saying, this is what I'm working with. these have been my struggles. Maybe this is how it used to be. This is where I'm at now. And just having that conversation. I think when you can discuss hair history, that opens the door for your hairdresser to be able to say, okay, this is where you're at now. This is a goal that you would like to achieve, but this is what's attainable. So let's kind of take step one and go from there. And I think that if anybody who's, a good hairdresser worth their grain of salt, or however you say it, if they're going to call themselves a hairdresser, then they should feel inspired by what you're bringing to the table. And they should want to, even if maybe at the time they don't have in their back pocket, oh yeah, you can use this product or this color, whatever, they're going to want to like research it for you and look into it and try to advise you as best as they can, because of course they want what's best for you, and they want to, retain you as a client as well. So, yeah, I think there's definitely, we can help each other when it comes to that. But anytime you go in for any kind of appointment, be it hair, makeup, massage, I don't know, whatever you're getting done, whatever's going on with your body, and having a service with another person, that consultation is key. So if you walk into a hair salon or a barbershop or anywhere and you're not having some kind of a consultation to discuss, any kind of concerns or even just desires or what you want to do with your hair, you should probably turn around and walk out. I'm just being honest. But I would say, 99% of hairdressers know that. And I think a really important thing to remember is if you have you have loyalty to your hairdresser, that's beautiful. But you don't want to let your hairdresser become complacent and just, oh, hi, sit down, do the same thing, blah, blah, blah. I see you every couple of weeks. Let's do it. Let's go. You should be having a conversation every single time. Even if it's every 2 weeks, you're going to see your hairdresser, just have a little conversation. How did it go? What's been going on? Did you notice anything different? And your hairdresser should be bringing in new products often, or new styling tools, or new styling tips. Hey, did you try this thing? Or did you use that round brush? Or how did your scalp feel after this? Or did you try this new massage oil? There's so many things you can do just to take care of your scalp, your ends, all of it. And so I know a lot of people are not as big of a hair nerd as I am, and your stylist, they're probably really busy and things like that, but it takes a couple minutes to have that conversation, and you're sitting there in their chair anyways, so if they're not doing it first, like they should, I think you should feel comfortable to bring up, those conversations and those concerns or those questions, or even just saying like, hey, have you heard anything new? Hey, have you seen anything on Instagram? Or, hey, I saw this thing on Instagram. What do you think about that? Like, just having those, because sometimes we sit in the chair and we're like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about what my kids said, or my kids. And you want to get into the personal stuff right away. And I do that all the time. I'm guilty of it, but I stop myself and I'm like, before we get started, let me ask you really quick, and I'm like, just really quickly, like, tell me about your hair. Like, what's going on? Are we doing the same thing? What's going on? Just a quick little interruption, because that'll save you potential harm in the future, but it's also going to keep you, happy with your hairdresser and your style and what's going on there.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I know, like for me, when I had to have this conversation with my stylist, she started really going into detail about the products and brands that they carried. And most of the lines that they carried were vegan, like to my surprise. So I was wondering, like, if someone has had a stylist for a really long time and maybe they're not carrying certain brands, like, are there brands that people should be on the lookout for that might be a safer option, especially more in the plant-based, like vegan realm, that you could recommend maybe for people to ask about?
Well, it's a tough question to answer, but I'll say the good thing is that it's starting to become, more available. So for example, like if you go to Sephora.com, right, they have like a certified stamped clean by Sephora. Now, I don't know how deep that goes. I don't know if it's like on the alpha-gal level, but they do have like better labeling, and they explain that it's vegan, or at the very least, they list all of their ingredients so that you can just check for yourself. And I know even like Sephora, they only have a few brands. Briogeo is one. And then JVN is a new brand that's coming out. And, he's definitely an advocate for everyone being represented, which includes people like, us. It's not just your sexual preference, but it's also like your health preference, which is really great that it's becoming a bigger topic of conversation, and it's actually being considered when it comes to all products all across the board, everything that's going on. So that's good news there. But the thing that's challenging is that, as a professional, as a licensed professional, it's like, we know that whether you are healthy, you have a chronic illness, you're well, you're not, it doesn't matter. A lot of the consumer products that are offered in stores, I don't want to name names, but just a big brand store, either you get your groceries there or you get your toilet paper there, whatever, I don't know, wherever they sell that kind of stuff. It's most likely it's not healthy for you to be putting it on your hair. And so that's a challenge that we face every single day of our careers. And it's really just trying to encourage every single person that we know, I mean, kids, grandparents, friends, everybody, not to be purchasing, those products that you're putting on your hair or on your skin in these big brand stores. And so you're really fighting a very uphill battle when you're kind of getting into that area. And so for us, I always recommend going with a professional product, which is difficult because the only way you can get to those professional products is through your stylist. I mean, you really can't go to a major store and just buy professional products. And if you do, like, again, I don't want to name names, but like a Ross or Marshalls or whatever, sometimes you can find these type of products. What happens is the way that they're getting them is not always the best way. So maybe a salon closed, and so they have a lot of back stock, they have a lot of old product, and somehow it gets into those hands, and somehow it's at, these types of stores, and then you're buying it. Sometimes, you get it from overseas, from Amazon, it's secondhand products, it's bootleg products, they cover it with the wrong labels. And so even though you may see an ingredient listed on there, it's not what's actually in the can or in the bottle. And so the only reliable source is if you're getting it from a professional stylist, from a professional salon, suite, barbershop, whatever it is. And they are getting it from, a source that they can guarantee, like a beauty supply source or distributor that they can rely on and believe in. And so that you're getting a quality product. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. What I will say is, if you're the type of person who doesn't have a regular stylist that you see, one, I highly encourage you to try and find one because they can change your life. And two, luckily, like I said, there are things that are changing. So Ulta Beauty is a great resource for really amazing professional products. And, Sephora is a great one too. So there are some stores and some brands out there that do offer, a higher level of product that's not going to be, filled with chemicals and horrible things that are really going to do severe damage to your outside, but also, eventually your inside as well. So it's just being more cognizant of where you're getting your products from and who you're talking to. And so it's a little bit difficult, but
I think it's a really important point, because years ago, after my sister went through hair school and she shared all of that with me, and how Paul Mitchell products were being bootlegged in these, big box stores and drug stores and all of that. I actually bought some Paul Mitchell at a drugstore, and I had real Paul Mitchell from the salon, like a little bit left in my bottle. And when I got home with the one from the drugstore, it was a completely different color. It smelled completely different. And I remember marching back into the drugstore and going, I need my money back because this is an illegal product. I totally went on this rant with them, and they were like looking at me completely stunned. And I was like, my sister just graduated from Paul Mitchell, and she totally, but it's true. And it is, I think it's really important, especially for those of us that are so sensitive to different ingredient derivatives or chemicals or what have you. And it could be doing more damage to your condition. So thank you for bringing that up. I do think that that's important for people to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult now to post-pandemic, and, products are harder to get. And so people are being, sneakier, unfortunately. I mean, I went to Stater Brothers the other day, and I'm gonna call it out, because I went and bought some cookies for my mom and they had an expiration date on the box, and they had covered it up and wrote a different date on it. And so they could, so that they could still sell it, even though they were stale old cookies. And I'm like, what is going on here? And so there's so much of that going on right now. And so, what we're putting in our bodies, on our bodies, it's like, we just have to be super, super aware of, paying attention to those details and the dates, and is it expired? Is it old? Is it the right product? What's going on? Right. So if you can have some trusted sources, it's, even if it costs you a little bit more in the long run, it's really, really worth it to be able to invest in your health and in what you're using on your body and in your body and stuff like that. So that's why I say, if you can go with a salon, that's, the most trusted, but I would say Ulta, Sephora, things like that, where they have integrity in their brands as well. And also, they have great return policies. So, if something does happen, they completely understand and they want what's best for you as well. It's important to kind of invest in that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too.
We just got an Ulta here. We live in a part of the country where we don't have fantastic shopping here in our little corner of the world, but we did just get an Ulta maybe Candace, a year or two ago. And it's like opened up the world, and just in time too for Alpha Gal, because we had to switch over to vegan makeup, and there are lots of options there that we couldn't get in any of the stores that have now shut down in the mall.
That's what I love about places like Ulta or Sephora, because not only do they have integrity in their brand, and I mean, I don't work for them, I'm not like sponsored by them or anything like that. Sure. I just, in my experience, and things can change, I don't know, but the brands that I do know of that are trusted, not only do they have integrity in their brand and what they're offering in terms of products and things like that, they invest in education as well. And so they train their staff and they teach their staff to be able to be knowledgeable to help, consumers like you and I. So when we walk in and we're like, hey, where's the vegan makeup? They can actually give you an answer and they can assist you and they can kind of help you with those types of things. So that's the kind of brands I like to support. I know a lot of people are like, well, why would I spend that much money when I can just go to the store and buy this or do that? And so that's really what's behind that. Even if you do, fortunately, some of these professional brands, they are offering, their products online. So if you go to their specific website, you can buy it directly from them. They're kind of opening up that avenue again, post-pandemic, before products that you could only get through your stylist, because we could only get through a distributor. They've really opened that door up now to where there's more options. And so you can kind of just go direct like that. So again, the price may be different, but what is it that you're willing to sacrifice? Do you want that, like you said, Candace, the bottle that has something else in it and you're paying a different price and it's not even the same product? Or do you want to guarantee that you're getting a quality product and a safe product? That's kind of, I think, more important. So something to think about.
Completely agree. And I do think, it helps you when you can find a really good product or new product that you love. It ultimately helps you take a step closer to feeling joyful again, where, you're getting out of the shower, you're drying your hair and you just feel good because what you've put on it doesn't make you feel like trash 3 hours later. So it's like these little steps forward. So I know for me personally, being this hair snob, that part was really encouraging in my joyful journey. So I think, I've loved this conversation where we've kind of gone through this whole transformation of our pillars and how we have kind of lived this out. And we're seeing that with you too. And I just think it's so beautiful. So we would, love to know, what are some things right now that you're doing to find joy and to bring that kind of to the forefront in your life?
Yeah. Well, lastly, I do want to mention really quickly that even in people that are not struggling with health challenges, from a professional that has a little bit of experience, I do want to share that something to keep in mind is that our bodies are constantly aging, right? And so things are always changing. And whether it's the weather outside or, just what's going on inside our bodies, things are always changing. So you may find a product that works for some time really well. But if you're consistently using the same product over and over again, sometimes our skin does have reactions to it. Our hair does eventually have reactions to it. And so it's helpful to sort of change up your products every now and then. So again, everybody's, situation is different. And some people, they find something that works for them and that's safe for them. And that is a good place to stay. And then some people, you may be using something for a long time that works really well. And then all of a sudden you notice that there's some changes. It could be something as small as switching up your product. Or if you start having dryness on your scalp because of the weather or things like that. So it's just good to keep in mind. I mean, I tell this to everybody, but just kind of be aware of that and just kind of have that in the back of your head. So I know when we're struggling with health issues like us, it's like whenever something changes, we kind of freak out because we're like, what did I eat? Or what did I do? Or what medicine did I forget? It's so many things. And so just keeping in mind that because things are just continuously changing, it's okay for us to be able to switch up our products, or maybe, during the summer, we use something that's a little bit more clarifying on our scalp because there's a little bit more sweat or oils or things like that, as opposed to when it's really cold and we're covered up and, it's a drier season and we need more moisture. And so there's a lot of things to think about when it comes to looking at your hair and makeup and skin and all of that as a beauty professional, like someone, myself that has experience in training in it versus, if that's not your area of expertise. So there's a lot of little different things to keep in mind, but you gals or anybody listening can always ask me questions because I'm a hair nerd. My friends call me the hair Google. So it's like any questions you have, I definitely love chatting about it. And like, I know even for myself, it's not just my skin on my face or my hair. I had to switch to like a clean deodorant. And so that was kind of, a struggle trying to figure that out. And so I just want to encourage people not to get discouraged and just think of it as a journey. Just think of it as being creative. You may have some days where you're like, okay, I'm going to wear a hat today. This did not go well. But eventually you'll find something that's so helpful for you. And I know for me, even along the way, I was looking for my deodorant and they actually had a lactic acid lotion for something called strawberry skin, which I had, and I didn't even know that I had it. I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was something else that had to do with my Lyme journey. And some, I honestly just didn't even know what it was. And so when I saw this video, because they're a clean brand, again, they're looking at skin issues. So it's not just the fragrance stuff like you're talking about, Candace, or, the cute Instagram, this and that. It's actually like real problems that real people are dealing with. And that's something that, kids can be born with it. It's like, it doesn't have to do with chronic illness. But it's something that as I got my thyroid disease, I developed. And so because I was looking on this clean, brand, which I believe they're called Lumi. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it was a miracle because I had been struggling with something that was very, like, to me, it's very embarrassing. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, what are these little bumps? And so then, you find something cool. So again, instead of just kind of shutting down and shutting everything out and, oh, I can't do it. It's like, just be open to kind of changing your products or trying something new. Don't be fearful of it. I know we're always so fearful of food, trying new food, but we try the food. Like strawberries used to make me sick. Let me try it again and see what happens. We can do the same thing with our products on our makeup, our hair, our deodorants, like all that stuff. Just be wise about it and be cautious, but definitely be open to trying it is like my last little bit of it, words of encouragement if I can, because that's part of my story.
That's so great. Yeah. And I think that's really good advice too. Actually, it's a little reassuring for me because there have been products that I've used and I've loved, and then that they'd stop working well. And I'm like, it's just me. There's something wrong. But to hear it from a professional is very reassuring.
Definitely. Well, talking with you gals has brought me so much joy because, as you know, that when you're struggling with health issues, especially GI issues, but any kind of, chronic illness, like what we do when we're warriors, we feel like we're fighting alone, and it can be so lonely and it can be so scary, and it's really tough. And so to have beautiful, amazing people like you gals and other people in our community, it's so encouraging. It's so uplifting. It gives me purpose, and it makes me want to just try new things and to keep doing what I'm doing, just advocating for chronic invisible illness and everything that's going on. And I'm so grateful. I've learned so much from you gals, and just from our friendship, it's been such a blessing. And so I thank you so much for that. And the last note I'll say is dance parties.
Yeah.
That's what brings me joy, because when I have to clean or do something, my fiance knows. He's like, oh no, she's got her ear pods in, because he just hears me singing and he's like, she's cleaning, she's singing. I don't know what's going on, but she's dancing and she's smiling. So I'm happy. So for me, it's putting on my ear pods, little Lenny Kravitz, Incubus, I don't know, whatever it is. And yeah, I become a different person. So
I love that so much. And, it's funny because Candace and I talk about that all the time, because we're both really deeply impacted by music, right? We find it very spiritual, no matter, what genre it is.
yes.
And so it's very healing for us. And so to hear you say that, I just adore that. And I'm wondering, is there a particular song that brings you joy, either in this moment or for all time, a song that you can always go back to that is going to be a dance party for you?
Oh my God. That's the impossible question, Debbie. It's like, there is no one song. Yeah. You know what? Well, luckily I have stepkids that keep me like a little bit young. So I kind of know some new music, but I mean, I love my oldies. Like that's what I grew up on. Obviously my worship music, there's incredible worship artists out there right now that are doing just amazing, wonderful things. And so I go on my YouTube and sometimes they have like compiled, it's like a whole, I don't know, 2 hours of like worship music. And so it just depends on what it is. I used to be, admittedly like a hardcore emo girl back in my day. It's like, I know it's embarrassing, but it's like, some My Chemical Romance, some Incubus. It's like, it just depends on the mood. Lenny Kravitz is an all-time fave. That's just like good memories. And that's, me and my fiance, that's our favorite stuff. But sometimes it's dancey, poppy stuff. Sometimes it's rock and roll. Like sometimes I just need a little metal depending on the day.
Sure.
It's like, yeah. So I have like a bunch of playlists and mixes on my Spotify and stuff and Pandora. But yeah, honestly, it's just like when I just turn it on, you know what I mean? Siri, skip to the next song or whatever I need to do. But it's like, I just keep it on and it just gets me in a totally different mood. It's so uplifting. It's amazing what music can do for you.
I agree.
The vibe.
And this whole conversation has been so uplifting. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today and share your journey with us and inspire us.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, just talking about these things and connecting, it's been life-changing for me. And it's given me so much purpose just to kind of share and realize that I have value in the knowledge that I have in the beauty industry and being able to share that. And it's actually given me kind of like a new little dream to, I don't know, be the master of like vegan products now. Cause I'm like always looking for new stuff. And it's like, I want to be the new, my nerdiness has gone to a new level now because I'm like, what are the safe vegan products? I want to know every brand, tell me everything. And so I have a new venture ahead of me now. So I will continue to, look into that and try to find some awesome things for you gals and do my best.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Please keep us posted.
It's been a gift. Thank you so much, Dani. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for what you gals do. It's incredible. I know the hard work that you put into it and the personal struggles that you have had and in finding the hope that you give us. It's like you have been through so much. And so I'm really, really grateful to you gals. And I hope we can do this again.
Absolutely. There will be more. I have all of the ideas right now. So thank you for joining us today on In the Tall Grass. Visit us at 2alphagals.com. That's TWOalphagals.com. Or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at 2alphagals. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a review and help us grow this community.
We're all faced with obstacles on our journey, whether it be food allergies or tick-borne diseases. You might outgrow the reactions, but you won't outgrow the person you become. Ticks suck, but life doesn't have to.